Right now, the law requires you to keep your gun locked away and inaccessible to those 14 and under. But in the new year, that goes up to anyone 18 and under. You're also legally required to keep guns out of reach to at-risk people, someone who has said or has shown that they could be a danger to themselves or others. It also prohibits guns being accessible to prohibited persons.
Okay, let me translate this into plain English. If you live in Illinois and you own a gun starting in 2026, the state is telling you your firearm must be inaccessible not just to kids 14 and under, but to anyone under 18. That's not a minor tweak. That's a major shift because now we're not talking about toddlers. We're talking about teenagers.
Guns must either be carried on your person around these people or fully locked away. And failure to follow these new rules could lead to civil penalties.
And that is the part nobody is explaining. This isn't just about storage. This is about liability, because once the government writes specific storage rules into law, they've just handed a civil attorney a checklist. Now, the question isn't, did you act reasonably? It becomes, did you follow the law perfectly? And if the answer is no, even slightly, you're exposed. And here's where this law completely disconnects from real life. Raising the age from 14 to 18 assumes that every teenager is a liability and that no teenager has ever had to protect themselves or their family. But that's not reality. I've covered stories where teenagers did exactly that. Let me remind you of one of them.
Well, a man whom investigators believe was trying to get inside homes in an East Harris County neighborhood is dead tonight, shot and killed by a teenager who was home during a break-in. That shooting has shaken the neighbors in one section of the Cloverleaf community.
Investigators tell me that the man broke into a hotel room here and started attacking a pregnant mom when her young son stepped in and shot the intruder.
That actually happened. So when the state says under 18 can't have access, they're not just talking about safety in theory. They're making a decision based about who gets to defend their family and who doesn't. And once you combine that with civil penalties and lawsuits, this law stops being about prevention and starts being about blame. Now, before somebody clips this and says, see, he's anti-safe storage, let me stop that right now. I've never been anti-safe storage, whatever the hell that means. I've said this for years. I'm against the government threatening people with punishment for how they choose to store their guns in their own home. And I actually addressed this exact thing in a video I did a year ago. Let me show you what I mean. Look, I'm not saying you should never lock your guns up. I'm saying the government shouldn't be threatening me with prison for choosing not to. What I do in my house is none of their business, as long as I'm not hurting anyone, which is why I literally sell Colion Noir branded gun safes on my website, like this LifePod safe that I have here, which is a great lightweight portable way to keep your guns safe and stored away while you're on the go. You can keep it in your home, you can keep it in your car, wherever you might be. Hell, I recently had my truck broken into and they stole everything in it except the gun I had in this LifePod XT safe. Oh, they tried to break into it and they couldn't take it because I used the security cable that comes with this case to lock the safe to my car. That's real world storage. Not theoretical, not written by politicians, not enforced by fines, a solution that secures the firearm and still works in real life. Now, if you're interested in learning about the Vault-Tec safes that I actually use, I have them available at shop.mrcolionnoir.com. I'll put a link in the description section for you to check them out. Now, let's get back to the law because it gets worse the more you actually think about it. Here's the real problem with laws like this. They don't just regulate behavior, they punish outcomes you didn't cause. That's something I said very plainly in my earlier video. The third reason I'm against safe storage laws is because they punish gun owners for the acts of criminals. So let me get this straight. If a criminal breaks into my home and steals the gun on my nightstand, he uses that gun to commit a crime, I go to jail? So if a criminal breaks into my house and steals my knives and then uses it to commit a crime, will I be held liable for that too? Better yet, how about if a criminal steals my car and then uses it to commit a crime or runs someone over with it? Why not make me responsible for that as well? That logic problem didn't disappear. Illinois just doubled down on it. According to the law itself, and I'm quoting directly from this Breitbart article, the law provides that a firearm owner shall not store or keep any firearm in any premises where the firearm owner knows or reasonably should know a minor, an at-risk person, or prohibited person is likely to gain access to the firearm unless the firearm is secured in a locked container. That phrase, knows or reasonably should know, is a lawyer's dream because it doesn't require certainty, it requires interpretation. And interpretation is where lawsuits live. Now, here's the other half of this that most people completely overlook. These laws don't just create liability, they also make it harder to get to your gun when you need it the most. I talk about this exact problem in a video I did a year ago, where I read a real story about a man dealing with a possible home invasion while trying to comply with the safe storage law. Let me show you what I mean. So I decided to get my gun. It's a .357 Magnum Smith & Wesson revolver, which I kept trigger locked and unloaded in a case in a walk-in closet. I retrieved the key hidden nearby, but then struggled to find the trigger lock's pinhole opening without eyeglasses. Now, this guy survived because he got lucky. He had time, but imagine if he didn't. Imagine dying in your own home because your gun was legally compliant, but practically unreachable. That's what these laws ignore. And then there's the enforcement problem. I've said this before, and it's still true. All safe storage laws are unenforceable without a gun registry. How would you know what guns people had and where they had them unless there was a national database giving you all of this information? You can't enforce this law evenly. You can only enforce it selectively, and selective enforcement is never about safety. That Breitbart article also notes the act requires gun owners report such thefts within 48 hours or possibly risk a civil penalty, which shall not exceed $10,000. That's before civil court, and civil court doesn't require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It requires just the mere preponderance of the evidence. That's how good people lose everything over crimes they didn't commit. I'm not telling you to never lock up your guns. I'm telling you the government shouldn't be allowed to threaten you with financial ruin for how you choose to defend yourself in your own home. That's the real cost of this law, and most people won't realize it until it's already too late. One thing's for certain and two things are for sure. Politicians and tech giants don't want gun content to be recommended to you, and we're all fighting this culture war together. Now, you can help do your part by liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel, but most importantly, sharing this video with at least one person. Together we can stop the suppression of our 2A rights. And don't forget to click the link in the description section of this video for the products that I mentioned in this video.